Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. The candidate forum this evening is sponsored by the Huntington County Chamber of Commerce, the Huntington County Farm Bureau, and Juniata College. Thank you, Juniata College, for hosting us here in the Neff Lecture Hall. Just a few formatting issues and a couple of housekeeping issues. It is customary to start with congressional candidates. Unfortunately, ours are running late, so we're going to shift around a little bit. And as you can see, we're going to go ahead and start with the House candidates this evening. Each candidate will be given a short period of time, about 3 minutes, to introduce themselves. Then we have a series of questions that we will be asking the candidates in a random order to answer for you, the audience. Questions may be submitted written on the cards. There should be cards and pens floating around in front of you for about the first 15 minutes of the event. If my committee could raise their hand from Government Affairs, these individuals will come around and collect the questions that will be reviewed to make sure we're not duplicating. All questions must be related to the industries represented here this evening. So commerce, business and industry, workforce, education, and agriculture. We would appreciate if your questions are specific to those industries. All right, Representative Mike, your 3 minutes starts now.
State Representative Mike Fleck. This is my 4th year in office, finishing up my 8th year. Prior to that, for 6 years, I was the district executive for the Boy Scouts for Huntington County and Wayne Township. In the House, I've served on the Education Committee the last 8 years, as well as the Commerce Committee, and more recently the Tourism Committee and Agriculture and Rural Affairs. I served my freshman term and then recently went back on. Of course, as you know, ag and tourism are our 2 largest industries in the state, but especially here in the Commonwealth, and it's something that I've worked hard to promote, as well as keep bad legislation from ever passing as it affects our ag community, as well as tourism, certainly. Education has always been my passion. I think we have enough hurdles in rural central Pennsylvania that access to a quality education should not be one of them. I served on the Southern Huntington School Board for 5 years, from 2001 to 2006. Left when I was elected to this position, where I was vice president of the board. And certainly those were some trying times in education. We did a lot of good things, had a great board at the time. I also served on the Huntington County Library Board for 6 years. Those were great times as well. However, after Governor Ed Rendell slashed our funding drastically, we had to make tough decisions, reduce staff, reduce hours. So, I'm not afraid to put up the tough votes, as we've done in Harrisburg. It's not an easy job. And it's not a thankless job, as some would say. I don't mind the schedule. It is 24/7, but that's something that I thrive on. And I thrive making our community a better place to live and work. We have a great workforce here. We have a great community of people who help each other out. And I'm very proud to be your representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Fleck. Next, we'll hear from candidate Richard Irvin.
Good evening. Thank you for the Farm Bureau, the Chamber, and Juniata College for having us here tonight. As introduced, my name is Richard Irvin, and I'm running to become your next state representative. I'd like to start off about telling you a little about myself, and then giving you a little bit of my viewpoints, and then follow it up to tell you how our campaign has been going. I'm a lifelong resident of Spruce Creek Township, Huntington County, born and raised there. I continue to reside there with my wife and 4 children. I always have taken the approach of putting God, family, and career. Unfortunately, this time of season, whenever you're out campaigning, you have a hard time putting family in its order. So that's one thing I think after May 20th I hope to correct. I've been serving as Huntington County Treasurer for the past 18 years. I was first elected in 1995 and took office in 1996. I have an accounting degree from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I pride myself on my financial background. But I must say I do think common sense can go a long way in Harrisburg. We have, I take the stance that I feel that government exists to work for the people, rather than the people working and paying taxes to support a large government bureaucracy. I believe in less taxes, holding the line on, I believe in less government, holding the line on taxes, and enabling our local officials to handle the regional matters, so our state leaders can focus on the prevailing issues in Harrisburg and getting them solved, which I feel at this time is cutting waste out of the state budget. Education approach that puts our children first, our parents in charge, and lets our teachers teach. Creating family-sustaining jobs. And also the pension reform. I think that's something that we definitely need to get solved in Harrisburg. As many of you know, my campaign has had its ups and downs, and that's why I'm actually a write-in candidate at this point in time. It was quite a setback to have my name removed from the ballot, but the support is continuing to come in, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to continue meeting with the fine citizens of this 81st district. And I have a lot of faith and belief that we can make the 81st district a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. The format at this point, we have drafted some questions from the committee perspective, as well as we've collected questions from the audience. We will ask a question and give each of you 2 minutes to answer the question. And again, the yellow 30 seconds, the red, you're complete with your answer. So let's start with, Richard, you mentioned in your opening comments that pension reform is a bit of an issue that you'd like to tackle. So this question came from the Huntington County Farm Bureau. How would you deal with the growing pension costs, over $45 billion, that are severely undercutting the Commonwealth's ability to fund ag programs and services, and that are also impacting property taxes, which happen to be a big concern to large landowners like farmers?
The pension shortfall in the two states' retirement systems could really be probably one of the largest financial crises that's facing our Commonwealth right now. And there is probably no real cheap way out of it. My opinion is that we cannot ignore the problem. It is actually caused by 3 different issues. The lack of the state funding the system on the years whenever it was fully funded. The fact that we've had poor investments, or the stock market crashes of 2001 and 2008, and then we've also increased benefits to our retirees and employees over the years. So my opinion is we cannot continue the bleeding of the pension system. It is one thing that we must address, and the fact that we must realize that a promise made is a promise kept. So all your current retirees and your current employees must continue to receive the benefits that they were promised. But we need to look at the new retirees only, and moving them from a defined benefit plan more to a defined contribution plan, which is more of a 401k or a 401k hybrid of sorts that would stop the shortfalls, or help the shortage in the retirement system. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Representative Fleck?
Well, certainly this is going to be one of the most painful situations that we've had to address in recent memory. And there is no easy answer. It's going to be painful for everyone. We've certainly seen that already with the cuts that we've had in the last few years. When Governor Rendell came in with the $4 billion deficit, waste was cut out of government. There's still, some little pockets that we can come after, but it's not going to be easy. Just yesterday, the Republican caucused on a pension reform bill that is tentatively set to be voted on in June, the first or second week, as it's going to be tied to the budget. But there again, you have 203 members, and it's going to take 102 votes. And everybody has a different opinion on what they want to see. You know, these are guaranteed pensions. Case law dictates that. So new hirees are not going to be, or current members are not going to be affected in what they're receiving. So by changing over to a 401k or something of that nature, which is what the bill does and something that inevitably we will probably end up doing, still doesn't make up for the shortfall of what we have, the obligation in there of the billions and billions of dollars that we're already on the hook for. And by rolling them into a new system, they're no longer paying in as they would, and so it's going to be painful for a couple years. Eventually we will get there, you know, it's getting to that magic number of 102 votes. And, you know, it's going to be another tough budget cycle of where does the money come from. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. The next question comes from our audience, and we'll start with Representative Fleck. Would you be for or against consolidating school districts within Huntington County?
You know, the first time I ever heard of this was Governor Rendell's budget address a couple years ago, and Rendell was probably one of the most savviest politicians we've seen, certainly, and he was characteristically known as, you know, throwing out something that would keep the press busy while he was able to, you know, focus on what he wanted to do. And, you know, prior to him mentioning that in his budget address, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about that, serious talk, and, you know, after that there wasn't a lot as well. I think it needs to come from the local level. I don't think that we should mandate anything, because once we start to mandate, you know, these mergers, it goes over like a lead balloon. There's areas that it makes sense. I think in Beaver County, they had a lot of school districts. They had lost population. They did feasibility studies. They cut them significantly, and everyone was able to get along for the most part. There was a situation in Cumberland County where two of the larger school districts also did a feasibility study to see what the savings would be and how it would affect them, and they decided that it wouldn't work out. Certainly we have a lot of school districts, but let's not forget, we are a very rural county, and you know, if we start closing down Shea Gap and you know, some other little schools out there, how long do you want your kid on the bus? So we have 4 superintendents. You know, we you know, go to one school district, and we're going to be hiring one superintendent that's probably going to be making double what our highest paid is here. So the savings is kind of lost there, because then you'll hire a assistant superintendent. So, you know, I think certainly it's something that we can look at. If it makes sense for us, it makes sense. But I think that the state can provide incentives that it makes sense.
Candidate Irvin.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I take an education approach that puts our children first, our parents in charge, and lets our teachers teach. Education is one of the state's major responsibilities, and I feel that it should remain at a local level. I know we got to look at what's economically sound for our school districts. Administration in our school districts right now continues to grow the cost of administration. So you look at a consolidation, that would reduce the amount of administration we would have to pay for. But my approach, like I said, with the school system is to definitely make things to have an economically sound system. Too many times I feel you cannot take a bottom or a top-down approach whenever it comes to education. You've got to look at it from the bottom up. Not every child learns at the same level or the same speed. Therefore, we cannot judge our school's performance on a standardized test score. I feel that a standardized test score is more of an insurance policy for actually receiving taxpayer funding. I think that we need to take an approach that rewards our schools for providing the best education that we can for our students, to take them to their maximum potential. I have a son who has a learning disability at this point in time, and not every school district can make him or take him to the maximum potential. I think we need to look more towards applied learning in our school districts at this point in time to teach them a trade, to have. Thank you.
One last question for both of you. We'll start, I guess both of our alternating, we'll start with you, candidate Irvin. Please tell us what you've accomplished as a leader in your community over the past several years.
I guess I came into the community, well, I've been in the community all my life, but whenever I first came into the political scene, I guess it was in 1995 and first elected county treasurer. Whenever I graduated from college, and I was out in the job market looking for a career. My aunt actually had told me about the treasurer's position becoming open due to a retirement. So that was really a beginning job for me, or my first job out of school. And I feel that I stepped into the treasurer's office when there was not even a computer in the office, and I developed it into what the treasurer's office is today. So I pride myself on what I have done in the treasurer's office over the past 18 years. Outside of the treasurer's office, I've tried to get on a few boards. I've been on the United Way board since 1996 as well. I've served as past president and current treasurer. And I've also tried to expand out into tri-county boards. I currently sit on the Center for Community Action, which is a human service board that reaches the Bedford, Huntington, and Fulton County areas. Most of all, though, I think that keeping in contact with my constituents. Every day I have individuals that walk into my office, and I can look them in the eyes, and they can look me in the eyes and tell me what their concerns are with what's going on in the Huntington County and the 81st District. And I can understand and listen, and at this point in time, I'm ready to move forward and act on
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Representative Mike Fleck.
Certainly. I think I touched on a lot of my civic engagements from the years on the school board and the library board, as well as a member of the Rotary Club since 1999, and was also vice president of the Rotary before I was elected and stepped down as an officer. And they do a great number of civic programs and helping a lot of our human service agencies. I too am on the United Way board, ran the 2006 campaign, and those are things too that I'm passionate about, because human services is a great need in this county, and if it wasn't for groups like the United Way and Rotary, certainly the tax base would not be there to help meet the needs at the most basic level, which is a human level. And so those are things that I think I inherited from my mother, volunteering at the Shirley home from longer than what I can remember, and just getting to know people and work with people. And leadership is about getting into the trenches and pulling your own weight. And certainly I think I've been a leader, but I've also been a follower for all the great leaders that we have here in this community. And certainly my years with the Boy Scouts and all the projects that we have done through civic engagements, whether our food collection drives or just the number of other service projects. In the legislature, I've been a leader on education when it comes to rural schools, and that's because of our rural schools that we have and the needs that we have here. So I will continue. I think that's something that's that you inherit from your family, from your upbringing. I've also been a leader in my church over the years, and that too is important. Thank you.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention to you as county residents that due to redistricting, the 81st district now covers all of Huntington County. So residents of the Broad Top area and the surrounding townships and municipalities will now have the opportunity to vote for one of these gentlemen at this table. If you're a Republican, you have the opportunity to vote for them in the primary election. Both are Republican candidates, and as Richard mentioned earlier, there's a write-in effort for his campaign. Lastly, you have 2 minutes, each of you, to tie up any loose ends to share with maybe you didn't get a chance to address in one of your earlier sessions. So, Representative Mike Fleck, would you please start?
Oh, thank you. Also addressing one of your comments, if you're a Democrat, you can also write my name in. So I would appreciate that. You know, I don't look at things in a partisan fashion. People come in my office and they'll say, you know, I'm a Republican, therefore you should help me. And it's like, I'm going to help you just because you're here, first of all. And I work hard. My staff works harder. They're on the front lines. I'm grateful for them. Grateful for my campaign team. When I first ran back in 2006, I knew that you know, politics 101, just the basics. He who knocks on the most doors, and also he who raises the most money. You know, we may not like that, but that's what it takes to get your name out there and let people know that, hey, this is why I'm running. But it's also an investment into your campaign. That year I knocked on 10,000 doors. Certainly not going to hit that many this year, but we have hit a couple thousand, especially in the new portions of the district, and very proud of that. We've been working hard, and you know, I'm in this to win it. I'm proud of the campaign that we've run. I'm proud of the people that have signed up to support me, and you know, certainly looking forward to moving not only this district but Pennsylvania forward. We're a great community, we're a great state. I still think we have our best years ahead of us, and it takes you know, leadership at all levels. And thank you, and I certainly would appreciate your continued support.
Thank you. Candidate, Irvin.
I mentioned it before, I believe in the 81st district. And I'm willing to go to Harrisburg and make the hard choices. They might not always be the most popular choices, but they will be the right choices to ensure that we have the opportunities for our children and grandchildren to live and work in the 81st district without having to move out. I think definitely we need to work hard to ensure that we can attract businesses into our district. And I think that's something that we need to focus on, and I would focus on as your state representative. Definitely reducing the corporate tax rates, making sure that we can advertise our empty buildings and actually market our good, strong, ethical workforce, and bring the corporations and the companies in the industry, try to bring them back to Huntington County in the 81st District to make sure that we can continue to grow and grow our tax base. I would go to Harrisburg with the idea that I have a family at home whose basically future depends on the decisions that I would make on the floor of the Capitol building. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our House candidates. They will be sticking around for a little while, hopefully, and you'll get the opportunity to speak to them individually. We're going to take about 5 minutes and switch out to the Senate candidates. During that time, I would encourage you, if you have any questions, to please write them on the note cards in front of you. Please keep your questions relevant to business and industry, commerce, workforce development, or agriculture. And we'll be back with you in just about 5 minutes. Thank you. So on the Senate side, we talked about redistricting with the House. We have a little bit of a different story with the Senate. As of this coming election and starting technically in January of 2015, although they December 1st of 2014. Correct. Although Senator Corman has already been very present in our community, there will be a split. So the best thing that you can do to find out which one of these fine gentlemen you'll have the opportunity to vote for is to look up who's my legislator at the state level. And if you put in your zip code, it will tell you which one of these gentlemen you'll have the opportunity to vote for. But to give you kind of an idea, it's the northeast portion of the county will be covered by Senator Corman. Some of the northern boroughs and townships that will still be covered by Senator Eichelberger would be Warriors Mark, Franklin, Spruce, Alexandria Borough, Porter Township, Walker Township, and then the southern portion of the county would also be covered by Senator Eichelberger. So, same format, gentlemen. We're going to give you each 3 minutes to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll start with the questions. So, let's start with Senator Eichelberger.
Thanks for everybody that was involved in putting this together. I know there's a lot of work involved in these events, and it's very nice of you to do that. I would be starting my 3rd term if I'm reelected. In the Senate, we have 4-year terms. The House has 2-year terms. And I appreciate it very much and consider it an honor to represent people in Huntington County. Been very involved here in the community, and I feel like I had a very good relationship with the folks that I've represented here, and particularly the groups that are sponsoring the candidates for this evening. When I ran for office, I talked primarily, and continue to do so, about 3 different areas of government that I continue to work on. One is reform, good government reform issues. And currently, out of bad things, sometimes we get some progress. There was recently a scandal in Philadelphia with 4 House members. We're taking cash in exchange for doing things. And allegedly, this hasn't been proven yet, but allegedly, because they were caught on tape, so people are to disprove it. But we're working on a number of things now that are advancing through the legislature. We just did a gift ban for cash in the Senate, and I think we'll see a lot more activity in good government reform. So I'm excited about that at this point in time. Fiscal conservancy is very important to me. Maintaining a good budget, cutting waste in government, doing those things. I'm consistently rated as one of the most conservative, fiscally conservative members of the Senate year after year, and I pride myself on that. And last, but certainly not least, are social issues that I work on. I'm currently the pro-life caucus chairman in the Senate, and have worked on many issues there. Sponsored the marriage protection amendment in the legislature a few years ago that would preserve marriage between one man and one woman, put it into our Constitution so that it's protected. Recently helped to fight off with colleagues, and Jake certainly voted for it, that we were able to keep taxpayer subsidized abortion out of the Obamacare exchange that has been thrust upon us from the federal government. We kept that successfully kept that out of Pennsylvania. So there's regular battles with all these issues that we fight on a regular basis, and so I will continue to do my best if I'm there for another 4 years to serve here in Huntington County. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Eichelberger. Senator Corman.
Thank you very much, and thank you for, again, putting on this event. It's sort of unique. John and I are both sitting up here. We're not running against each other. I guess I need to start out with an apology for intruding into Huntington County. You've been ably represented the last 8 years in the Senate by Senator Eichelberger, and now you get this new face to look at, which puts me in a unique position that I'm an incumbent, been in the legislature for now my 4th term, but I'm asking for your vote for the first time. So it's new territory for me. But living in Bellefonte all my life, it's not very far away. Certainly spent a lot of time over the years, normally coming over here in high school and getting my butt kicked at athletic events by Huntington and Mount Union. But I'm glad to be here. It's close to my house, and I'm a father of 3 young children. My wife and I are raising a daughter who's 11, and we're anxiously excited about the teenage years that are before us. And we have 2 boys, 9 and 7. And you know, why I'm running again and why I enjoy my job is because, like the rest of you who are living in your community, you want your community to be a better place to live. When you're raising children, you want the community to be a place for them to grow up, to be safe, to be well educated, to have quality health care. But most importantly, that when they decide what they want to do in their life, that they have the opportunities at home to do it. The last thing I ever want as a parent for my children to come to me and say, Dad, I really want to live here in central Pennsylvania, but there's really not any opportunity, so I have to go elsewhere. Now, they want to spread their wings and move out and do things, that's fine, and that's the American way, but I don't want them to be forced out because of lack of opportunities right here in central Pennsylvania. And so that's why my career has been focused on trying economic development, because I believe jobs are the most important thing to any community. You can't have quality education, you can't have quality health care, you can't have safe streets, you can't have good families if you don't have good family-sustaining jobs. If you look at a lot of social problems that John talked about, not that they're completely mitigated, but if you have a good economy, a lot of that is reduced. Violence in the home, violence in the street usually come from economic strikes, people who are under a lot of pressure to try to make ends meet when they don't have those family-sustaining jobs. And I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, rural, urban, suburban Pennsylvania, jobs are important to a healthy community, and that's why I've tried to focus on that. I've been able to, in my term, thanks to guys like John, changing the Senate over very quickly, I've been able to move up, and I'm now Senate Appropriations Chairman, which means my job is to oversee the budget process, which is a great challenge. And I see that my time is coming up, so I'll just leave you with this. We have a great decision before us, not only as Pennsylvanians, but as Americans. And the question is, what do you want for your government, and how much are you willing to pay for it? Because it's not free. There are big decisions, and a lot of decisions about pensions and about Medicaid, things like that, and I'll get into them more. But the decision is,
Thank
it's
you,
not
Senator
free.
Corman. Our first question is coming from the Government Affairs Committee. Pennsylvania is often considered to be a business-unfriendly state due to its corporate tax structure and its regulatory climate. What policies would you like to see developed that would overcome these challenges? We'll start with Senator Corman.
Well, we need to make a lot of changes there, but the problem is we haven't had the ability to because we have to pay for the growth of government. Right now, we're facing, in our state budget this year, $1.7 billion in cost carry forward, things that we don't have any choice but to pay for. So before we even start looking at education, looking at economic development, looking at agriculture, looking at all the things you'd like to invest money into to get returned, we have to come up with $1.7 billion to pay for things like pensions, like prisons, like Medicaid. And I get back to my earlier point is, if you like these benefits and you want to continue them, what are you willing to pay for it? Because, I was in a debate the other day on the floor of the Senate, and a lot of my Democratic colleagues were talking about, well, we should have a shale tax, we should have a tax on smokeless tobacco, we should have a tax on this, we should have a tax on that. And they're cleverly pointing to taxes that most people don't pay. And the problem with that theory, as I mentioned on the floor, is the old great Margaret Thatcher line is, eventually you're going to run out of other people's money. Trust me, if we can't contain the growth of government to a $1.7 billion cost carried forward, which if you add anything else, it's really a $2 billion increase every year, we're going to get around to taxing you, right into personal income tax. So that before we, so I would like to make corporate changes. I would like to make Pennsylvania a more friendly state because the best place to gain revenue is through jobs, through people buying things, having wealth to be able to buy things, and through sales tax revenue. But we can't make those types of changes until we get this growth under control. And so that's why I'm a big advocate of pension reform. It has to be done. It's not about social policy. It's about math. It's $1.6 billion over the next 3 years increase in our pension contribution as a state. That's unaffordable. Medicaid's about the same level. These are areas that we have to reform before we even talk about doing any new revenue.
Thank you, Senator Corman. Senator Eichelberger.
Yeah, part of the problem is, and who Jake was debating the other day was the Democrat floor leader. We have a very difficult time obtaining votes to make some cuts for businesses in Pennsylvania. And we need to have a more customer-friendly environment in Pennsylvania to attract businesses. And we can't do that with really the highest corporate tax structure in the world. In the world. Pennsylvania has the highest corporate tax structure in the entire world. We've got to get away from that. One of the other big issues that, of course, we have a hard time getting votes from the left side of the aisle is to make this state a right-to-work state. The unions are very difficult to deal with in Pennsylvania, particularly the public sector unions. And the money that they're taking away from the state, we keep talking about the pension situation. We cannot get any movement from the public sector unions on pensions in Pennsylvania. None. They look at us and they say, get the money. They don't want to sacrifice anything, they don't want to change anything, even for new employees coming into the system. They don't want to change it. So somehow we've got to get a few more people in the legislature, to stand up to the left, special interest groups, and make some tough decisions and turn this business climate around. We're very heavily regulated in Pennsylvania, which isn't always a bad thing, but it's gotten to the point where when you talk to farmers, for example, the difficult time getting their job done. DEP is tough to deal with. And a lot of these regulatory agencies are very difficult and very expensive for us. And we have to keep these things in mind if we want to attract industry into Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question relates to a proposal that's currently in the Senate that would remove property taxes in favor of an increase in the personal income tax and an increase in the in the sales and use tax. Can you comment how you feel about that particular bill and what you might do as an alternative? Senator Eichelberger.
That's Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76. I'm a co-sponsor on the Senate bill. We've worked on it for years. It's been around the legislature for decades. A lot of you folks remember maybe Sam Gore, who was in the House for a long time and then ran for governor. Sam was a champion of that issue when he was there, and there have been a lot of people working on that bill since. We're very close now, I think, to getting a vote on it in the Finance Committee. I serve on the Finance Committee, and we had a hearing on this. Again, we've had a couple hearings. We had one about a week or so ago. And the math problems have been our biggest issue, and they've gone back, redrawn everything. What we'll do is this will only affect school taxes, not county or municipal taxes, but it will affect school taxes, which the Farm Bureau is very supportive of it because they pay a lot of property taxes. And it'll shift that into sales, and sales will be expanded. Right now we have a lot of exceptions in the sales tax law, and they'll be closed for the most part. Although most clothing would still be exempt, medical services would still be exempt, but virtually everything else would be taxable. And then we'll face the wrath of all the groups that are currently exempt, and then we'll have to charge a sales tax. Your accountants, your attorneys, your theaters, your ski lifts and so on, your bowling alleys. There's lots of exemptions out there, and they would all have to charge at 6%, or which would probably be about a 7% sales tax. And that money would be collected, but that would offset our school property taxes. And the theory behind that is primarily is that we've gotten to the point in Pennsylvania where our school property taxes are really becoming a burden to many people, where they're starting to, the foreclosure rate is accelerating, and we're starting to see people lose their homes because of their school property tax and their lack of funding to pay for that, especially for seniors. So I know I'm about out of time, but that's a very popular
Thank you,
bill.
Senator Eichelberger.
Thank you very much.
Senator Corman.
You know, I applaud Senator Argyle, who's the sponsor of Senate Bill 76, and John and the others. It's an important issue. I mean, we all hate property taxes. I'm a homeowner. I hate them. You know, every time I got to write that check out. You know, I'm a big believer that taxes should be painful, so we know how hard it is. And if you could actually get people to apply or to comply, we'd get rid of withholdings, and we'd have a revolution in our federal government. You had to write a check for your income tax, your FICA tax, and all that. And wait a minute. Why am I paying all this money? And that's why we hate the property tax, because we see it, we pay it. Hopefully it does get a finance committee, because we need to have a discussion. Now, look, there's ups and downs with this. I mean, not only is John saying about, you know, you pay a higher income tax, you pay a higher sales tax, or at least sales tax on more things, but that's more on consumption, which is probably a better way to taxation, because it's your ability to pay. Property tax is not really on your ability to pay. But the problem is that we all have to think about and talk about, and that's why it's important to get this bill moving and get out public discussion, is if the state's collecting all the money, then we're going to have all the decisions. And you know, so are we prepared, and we got to come up with ways to deal with that. We got to come up with ways to make sure we have local control, that we have local ability to do infrastructure improvements if we want to do that. If, you know, all that revenue is coming from the state, you know, you're going to have your whole equalization of, you know, they're spending in Montgomery County $22,000 per student. In rural Pennsylvania, we're probably spending, you know, closer to 10. So these are issues that will have to be worked out. But they're not going to get worked out until we get a serious proposal moving and get in more public discussion. And so, you know, I've been in the legislature 16, this is my 16th year, and we get this question every year. Everyone hates property taxes. This is a serious proposal that's out there. It's out there for a discussion that needs to be to work out all the kinks of it. But it's a choice. I said before about how much your government we're willing to pay for. This is a choice as well. We got to make sure that we keep some sort of local control at the same time, so that we can decide what kind of education we'll have for our kids.
Thank you, Senator Corman. And last but not least, for our questions from the audience, we'll ask you a similar question that we asked our House members, our candidates. Would you be for or against consolidating school districts? And this one is specific to Huntington County, but it would be a Commonwealth thing. Senator Corman?
I can probably concur with what was said earlier. That's a local decision. There is a statute in place that allows districts to consolidate now, if it's their desire. To have the state force something like that, as Governor Rendell proposed, I would not be for. We get to decide. Education is the most local issue we have. I believe in local control of education, and so we should design an educational system that works for our communities. I represent counties like Mifflin and Juniata, and I used to represent Clinton, that have one county-wide school district. Center County has a variety of school districts, as does Huntington County. That's your decision. That shouldn't be the state of Pennsylvania's decision. That should be your local community decision. So if you want to go through the time and effort to research this and put panels together of people to look at all the nuances of consolidating your school district, you have every right to do it and should do that, and then make the decision here locally. That is not a decision for Harrison. And it may work in one part of the state, it may not work in the other part of the state. Look, the most consolidated school district in the Commonwealth is the Philadelphia School District. It's the largest one, it's all consolidated into one, and it doesn't exactly work great. But other school districts have, like I said, countywide seem to work for them. So that's a local decision and should be made here by the people of Huntington County, not by folks in Harrisburg.
Thank you, Senator Corman. Senator Eichelberger?
I think the question was specific to Huntington County, but it's hard to address it that way because, as Jake said, it's really a statewide issue, and on a county-by-county basis, it varies dramatically. What might work here might not work in another county, even one county away. John Wozniak, who's one of the big proponents of consolidating school districts in the legislature, he's from Cambria County, and they have 14 school districts in Cambria County, and he points out regularly that I think there's somewhere around 5 or 6, maybe even 7 of those school districts. If you combine them, they would still be smaller than the Altoona area school district. And they're right there at Johnstown. I mean, they're urban school districts, but they're all separate. So we have a lot of inefficiencies in our school government system, and we've got to find out better ways to address it. Whether we would dictate something that is very difficult to do, we probably couldn't get the votes for that, but what we could probably do is have some funding that as an incentive that would be based on schools being willing to do studies and do things to look at consolidation and merger, because we know there's efficiencies. I know, frankly, I've had discussions with superintendents, and I don't want to hand out any names tonight, but a lot of superintendents are very open to that. They see some efficiencies there, and they're willing to do it. There isn't an automatic pushback from all schools. Many of them are open to looking at better ways to stretch a buck and deliver a better product for the people in their districts.
Thank you. I'd like to remind you again that when voting in the primary and in the general election, it's not an either or with these gentlemen. It is based upon your zip code. I do have a small map up here if you'd like to take a look at it before the end of the evening to see which district is which, and you can again find that also on the state's website. So to close out the Senate portion of this evening's event, I'd like to give each of you 2 minutes to wrap up any loose ends or talk about any issues that we didn't get the opportunity to cover. So, Senator Eichelberger?
Again, I'd like to thank everybody. Amy, thanks for your leadership tonight. And I want to say a couple words about Jake. I want to welcome him into the county. He's been a great colleague since I've been in the Senate. And I think I introduced him the first time at a Republican dinner we had here in Huntington County. But I'm sure we'll appear many places together here over the next 4 years. And it's important to have good relationships in the Senate. It is, people talk about this, it is more, I think, collegial environment than maybe what the House is. You can talk to the House members about that, but we do seem to work together. I think we work best often on regional issues, And I know in Franklin County and in Cumberland, where I'm moving into a new territory, the senators there have been very gracious to me, and we've pretty much convinced most people that we'll work together as a team. So that instead of losing their representation, somebody they're familiar with, they're gaining somebody into that family of representation there, and now work together with the other members of the legislature, and we'll have a bigger voice in Harrisburg. So I consider that a plus here in Huntington County, and I'm sure that Jake will be a very good voice for us, and we'll work closely together. So I want to welcome him tonight, and thank you for your support that you've given me in the past, and I hope that I can live up to your expectations for the next 4 years.
Thank you, Senator Eichelberger. Senator Corman?
Just real quick, I can actually, since I only have 9 municipalities, I can actually name them quickly. The boroughs of Petersburg, Huntington, and Mapleton boroughs, and the townships of Logan, West, Korea, Jackson, Smithfield, Oneida, Henderson, Brady, and Miller County. So there you have it. Thanks for allowing me to be here today. You know, I mentioned about my children, I'm a Little League parent, and if anything keeps you more grounded in life, it's your children. You might see me time to time leaving the Capitol around 4 o'clock with my ball uniform on to get home for my kids' games. And it's actually the politically dumbest thing you can do, because I'm actually coaching the bases and running, waving kids in, and nothing takes the other team off and parents off. So I probably have lost a lot of votes at the Little League field over the last few years. But, you know, it's what drives me. What drives me is it keeps you grounded, it keeps you, what's important. When you're in Harrisburg, you know, you're in Harrisburg, everyone wants to buy you dinner, buy you a drink, you know, come to your office, open the doors, do all that. You come home, none of that happens. No one's opened my door at home, all right, you know, but especially my own home. And so, you know, that's what keeps me grounded, and that's what keeps me what's important. And what's important is our communities. And, you know, whether I live here, which I don't, and I live in Bellefonte, but I want to be a partner. You know, I got asked the question of what is your economic development strategy for Huntington County when I first came here? And my response was, I don't have one. That's the strategy for the people of Huntington County. My job as a senator is to help them implement that strategy. So, you know, I want to be a partner with John in this community here in Huntington County to help you fulfill your destiny. Whatever you want Huntington County to look like, that's my job to make it happen. Because as I said earlier, the most important thing is healthy communities. Healthy communities is what we all want. We all want safe streets. We all want good schools. We all want quality health care. These are things we can have, and I want to be a partner with you to make that happen. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight, and I ask for your support in the primary in a couple weeks.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break here quickly and switch out with our congressional candidates that we have with us this evening. Thank you.